You didn't disappear to be forgotten. You disappeared to become unforgettable. Let that hit, my friends. Let that shake off the lies you've been fed about silence, about walking away, about going ghost. Because the truth is, you didn't vanish to hurt them. You vanished to heal you. You didn't go quiet to make noise. You went quiet to make impact. And they felt it. Not right away, not out loud, but deep, where it hurts the most. In the part of them that remembers what they lost, but can't figure out why it stings so much. That's not coincidence. That's power. See, most people think disappearing is weakness. They think if you cared, you'd stay loud, you'd stay reactive, you'd fight to be understood. But let me tell you something real. Your mystery is your magnetism. Your silence isn't avoidance. It's attraction. Because the human mind can't ignore what it doesn't understand. And when you stopped explaining, when you pulled back with calm and confidence, you became the question they can't answer. That, folks, is where the obsession begins. Let me paint you a picture. Imagine a TV show that suddenly stops airing right before the season finale. No warning, no closure, just silence. What happens? Everyone goes wild. They dig through old episodes, they analyze scenes, they create theories. Why? Because mystery demands attention, and in dating, the same rule applies. When you stop showing up, when you don't post for attention, when you don't explain your every move, they can't stop replaying your last scene. You didn't become invisible, you became iconic, and that's what they never saw coming. They expected a reaction, a fight, a tearful exit. But you left like a shadow, quiet, smooth, unapologetic. And now your absence screams louder than any words ever could. Because here's what they don't want to admit. You were the vibe. You were the light, the balance, the consistency. And now they're left with chaos wrapped in filters, fake laughter, and new people who don't hit the same. Let them chase noise. You chose value. Marcus Aurelius said, "The more we value things outside our control, the less control we have." You took the control back. You stopped begging for clarity from people who thrive on confusion. You stopped giving energy to people who only showed up when it was convenient. You stopped fighting for a seat at a table you built. That's not cold, my friends. That's clarity. That's emotional intelligence. That's dark magnetism. And listen, I get it. It's tempting to peek, to check their story, to post something just to get a reaction. But that's the old game. That's them pulling you back into performance mode. And you've left the stage. You're not here to prove anything. You're here to evolve. You're not hiding. You're upgrading. You're not detached. You're dangerously self-aware. So no, your disappearance didn't make you small. It made you scarce. It made them realize that what they thought was constant was a privilege. And once that access is gone, the memory turns gold. People always want more of what they can't have. And now that you've become unpredictable, you've become unforgettable. That's the paradox of value. Once you disappear, they start seeing what they never appreciated. Let me give you a little fun one. You ever notice how the toy kids ignore all year suddenly becomes their favorite when it's lost? Yeah, that's you now. Not a toy, a treasure. And you don't have to remind them of your worth. The silence is doing it for you. Every unread message, every ignored post, every moment they sit there wondering what you're thinking, that's you, in control without saying a word. So say it in the comments right now. I disappeared to rise. Type it, feel it, own it, because you didn't walk away to be missed. You walked away to be respected. Smash that like button if this just lit a fire inside you. Hit subscribe because we're about to go even deeper. Stay with me. 1. The power of vanishing without explanation. Not all exits are escapes. Some are ascensions. Let that one crack the shell of everything you've been told about walking away. Because if they ever made you feel like you ghosted, like you ran, like your silence was weakness, let this truth pierce through the fog. You didn't ghost. They just lost access. You didn't disappear out of fear. You disappeared because you were done giving front row tickets to people who never stayed for the full show. You see, folks, there's a difference between leaving and elevating. You didn't slam the door. You floated through it, quiet, calm, complete. And now they're standing there, staring at that door, wondering why it's locked when they never noticed it was even open. That's the power of disappearing without a warning. It shocks the system, it rewires the dynamic, it flips the script. Suddenly, they're not the one deciding when or how the story ends. You are. And the silence. It's not a period, it's an exclamation point they can't stop reading. Let me give you a picture. Imagine a light that was always on, warm, steady, unquestioned. People walked into the room and just expected it to glow, never once asking who kept it lit. Then, one day, click, darkness, no sound, no warning. That room, it doesn't just feel dim, it feels abandoned. And not because the light broke, but because the one who powered it walked away. That's you. You were the emotional light switch they never noticed until the room got cold. And now every moment they spend in that silence becomes a question they can't answer. Did I do something wrong? Why didn't they say goodbye? Were they ever really into me? Are they gone for good? These questions, they're not weaknesses in your story, they're cracks forming in theirs. Because deep down, they know. You didn't leave because you stopped caring, you left because they did. But I know the fear that creeps in at night, the whispering thoughts, the self-doubt, the emotional static that starts buzzing in your brain. What if I'm the one being dramatic? What if they really didn't notice I was hurting? Maybe I should have said something. Maybe they just needed more time. Maybe they would have changed. Let me stop you right there, my friend. You said something. You said everything. With your consistency, with your patience, with your vulnerability, with your willingness to be soft in a world that made you want to shut down. You spoke, not in paragraphs, but in presence. You didn't disappear suddenly. You just finally stopped screaming with your silence and started whispering with your absence. But I get it. It's hard. It feels unnatural. Because we've been taught that closure is a conversation, that love means effort, that ending something means explaining everything. But here's the hard truth most people avoid. Some people don't deserve your explanation. Some people were never listening in the first place. And explaining your worth to someone who only valued your absence in retrospect, that's not closure. That's emotional labor for someone who never clocked in. Marcus Aurelius said, "Don't waste time arguing what a good person should be. Be one. You were one. And now you're being one to yourself. Because the exit you made wasn't a retreat, it was a reclaiming. Still, the world will lie to you. They'll call it ghosting. They'll say you're avoiding confrontation, that you were heartless, immature, unfair. But let's break that lie right now. It's not unfair to choose peace over performance. It's not heartless to stop bleeding for people who didn't notice you were hurting. It's not immature to refuse to dance in chaos you didn't create. You didn't ghost. You grew. And growth doesn't always leave a note. Let me give you another metaphor. Think of a tree in the forest. It doesn't explain when it sheds its leaves. It doesn't justify why it goes silent in winter. It doesn't beg for understanding when it chooses stillness over bloom. It just knows now is the season to retreat inward, to conserve, to transform. That's you now. This is your season of inward growth, of sacred silence, of stepping away from what drained you, not because you're cruel, but because you're finally connected to your own roots. And you want to know the most powerful part? You didn't need to make a scene. You didn't need to raise your voice. You didn't need to slam the door or throw a tantrum. You just exited with calm, with grace, with a kind of stillness that terrifies people who only understand love through noise, because now they're haunted, not by what you said, but by everything you didn't. And let me be clear, this doesn't mean they'll show it. They might act fine. They might post louder. They might pretend you were a footnote, not a chapter. But don't be fooled by the show. The louder they try to flex, the deeper the silence echoes inside them. You were the emotional anchor, the stabilizer, the one who always showed up. Now, you're the ghost they can't stop seeing in the mirror. So yes, it will be hard. You'll question if you should have stayed, if they even noticed, if they cared. But let me tell you something real. Your absence is teaching them what your presence never could. Your silence is doing the explaining your words couldn't. And you're not vanishing. You're rising, quietly, steadily, powerfully. Say it with me in the comments right now. My exit was elevation. Type it, feel it, own it, show yourself, show the world. Because you didn't disappear to be erased. You disappeared to be etched into memory. That's the Stoic way. That's dark magnetism in motion. Smash that like button if this just hit a nerve you've been trying to ignore. Hit subscribe, because we're only getting started. Stay with me, folks, because next we're diving into the silence that follows your absence and why the quiet becomes their obsession. Let's keep rising. 2. Silence as a psychological hook. You left without words. Now their mind won't shut up. That, my friends, is where the real grip begins. Not in the drama, not in the fight, not in the crying goodbye on the phone moment people are used to seeing in the movies. No! The most haunting exits don't come with fireworks. They come with silence. Clean, calm, wordless. And it's that stillness that begins to echo louder than any confrontation ever could. You didn't write a novel explaining how they failed you. You didn't beg them to hear you out. You didn't line up your reasons like evidence in court. You simply left. And in doing so, you gave them a gift they didn't ask for and definitely didn't want, their own thoughts. Because the mind, it hates loose ends. It hates silence it can't control. And now they're trapped in that space between confusion and clarity, trying to stitch together meaning from a goodbye that never came. See, when people get closure, they get to control the narrative. They get to assign blame, shift weight, patch up their ego. But when you don't give them that story, when you exit without noise, they're left holding 1,000 fragmented pieces and no picture on the box. That's not cruelty. That's accountability. That's letting their mind do the work your words could never finish. It's like this. Imagine opening a book that's missing the last chapter. You flip through the pages, rereading earlier parts, looking for clues, wondering if you missed something. That's what your silence does. It forces them to go backward, to replay your conversations, reanalyze your body language, rethink the moments they dismissed, the red flags they ignored, the soft warnings you whispered that they were too distracted to hear. And now every glance you gave is a paragraph. Every sigh is a sentence. Every goodbye you didn't say becomes a full chapter in their head. That's the power of psychological hooks, and you, without knowing it, became one. And here's the wildest part. They won't admit it. Not to you, not even to themselves. They'll act unbothered. They'll say you were too dramatic, too sensitive, too confusing. But deep down, they know it wasn't you, it was them. They're not trying to decode you. They're trying to decode the version of themselves you left behind. Because silence, my friends, is a mirror. It doesn't scream, it reflects. And when someone is used to deflecting blame, your lack of reaction removes their shield. They can't fight your words anymore because you gave them none. All they're left with is their own echo chamber, and trust me, it's getting louder. But why does this hurt more than an argument? They ask themselves. Why does their silence feel heavier than their presence ever did? Because confrontation ends things, but silence stretches it out. It becomes a constant loop in their mind, and unlike your presence, your absence never sleeps. They don't get to put it to rest with closure. They don't get to move on with a clean slate. They wake up with it. They fall asleep with it. It lingers. It itches in places they can't scratch. That's what happens when you take your energy away without a label or a timestamp. And I know what you might be thinking. Was that unfair of me? Should I have said something? Should I have given them that final moment? Let me be real with you. If they had truly listened while you were there, they wouldn't be so lost now that you're gone. You were clear, with your actions, with your patience, with your repeated grace. You just stopped using your voice because it was falling on ears that had already tuned out. So you did what only the powerful do. You let your silence carry the weight of everything your words could no longer hold. And no, you're not confusing. You're not a puzzle to be solved. You're not a riddle they failed to decode. You were real. You were consistent. You were soft in a world that rewards sharpness. And now that you've gone quiet, they finally feel the sting of what they took for granted. So when they call you hard to figure out, when they accuse you of being cold or too distant, just remember this. I'm not confusing. I'm unexplainable. Say it, believe it, live it. Because some energies aren't meant to be understood. They're meant to be respected. And your silence, that's not a question mark. That's a full sentence. And the ones who really knew your heart, they never needed subtitles to understand your story. Stay with me, because next, we're going deeper into why mystery isn't manipulation. It's magnetism. 3. Mystery isn't manipulation. It's magnetism. They chase what they don't understand, and now you're unreadable. Let that sit in your bones for a second, my friends, because this isn't about playing games, it's about stepping into your power. You didn't pull back to be petty. You didn't become distant to get attention. You simply stopped giving people VIP access to a presence they treated like general admission. And now? Now you're unreadable, unreachable, unshakable. And nothing pulls people in faster than the unknown. See, the world today is obsessed with being loud. Constant posting, oversharing, telling everyone how you feel in real time, just to prove you're alive and worthy. But here's the truth they won't teach you in that chaos. Real attraction isn't about being seen every day. It's about being felt, in your absence, in the silence, in the space where you used to be. Mystery isn't manipulation. It's magnetism. And the moment you stop over-explaining, stop justifying, stop narrating your worth to people who never heard you to begin with, something shifts. You stop being predictable, and when you become unpredictable, you become powerful. Because humans don't chase what's obvious, they chase what's elusive. Let me give you a metaphor. Think of fireflies on a summer night. You don't chase them because they're always visible. You chase them because they flicker, they disappear, then reappear. That moment of where did it go is what makes you run. That's mystery. That's what you've become. You stopped glowing on demand, and now they're running around in the dark looking for your light. You were available, consistent, loving, present, and they mistook that for permanence. They thought your kindness was a subscription service. They forgot you were showing up out of choice, not obligation. And now that you've gone quiet, now that your light doesn't blink in their direction anymore, the air shifted. Their peace feels disrupted, but they won't say it. They'll pretend it's fine, but it's not. Because something's missing, and that something is you. But here's the tricky part. Our culture confuses mystery with manipulation, especially when it comes from someone they used to control. They'll say, "You're playing games," or "Why can't you just be direct?" But what they really mean is, "Why aren't you predictable anymore?" What they miss is that your silence isn't deceit, it's discipline, it's self-protection. It's what happens when someone finally values their own peace more than proving their point. Over-explaining ruins mystique. And when you explain too much too often, you become consumable. You become easy to read, easy to dismiss, easy to take for granted. Think about it. How often do we lose interest in things that are just too available? It's not because we're cruel. It's because human psychology thrives on curiosity. We value what we don't fully understand. And now that they don't fully understand you anymore, they're paying attention. They're watching, reading between the lines, looking for signs. Because when they knew your every move, they stopped looking. But now that you've gone quiet, now they're studying. And that right there is what makes mystery magnetic. It forces focus. You've become a question mark in their mind. And the mind hates questions it can't answer. You used to be the open book. They read the chapters, dog-eared the pages, left it on the shelf like it would always be there. But now the book's closed. The shelf is empty. And they're scanning the room, desperate for a sequel that doesn't exist. So no, mystery isn't cold. It's not selfish. It's not cruel. It's a boundary. It's you saying, if you want access to me, it costs more now. Because that's what happens when you evolve. You stop giving away parts of yourself like free samples. You become the full-course meal, reserved, earned, exclusive. And sure, they'll act unbothered. They'll shrug, laugh it off, pretend your distance is no big deal. But trust me, every smile hides a calculation. Every silence is now louder because it used to be filled with you. They felt entitled to your presence. Now they feel the void. And that's the part they didn't see coming. That's what shakes them. You didn't ghost. You leveled up. You didn't hide. You stopped broadcasting. And in doing so, you became something the shallow world can't handle, a mystery with depth. You were never meant to be easy to explain. You're not a trend. You're not a phase. You're a storm with calm on the surface and chaos underneath, a rare mix that can't be boxed, labeled, or replaced. And now that they can't define you, they can't dismiss you, say it with your silence. Say it with your absence. Say it with your stillness. You're not confusing. You're unexplainable. Stay with me, because next we're pulling the thread deeper. We'll explore why people don't realize what they had until you stop being predictable. Let's keep rising. 4. They don't regret you until you stop being predictable. Familiarity breeds indifference. Mystery breeds obsession. Let that one hit deep, my friends, because there was a time, you know it, when you were showing up, fully present, fully available. The good morning texts, the check-ins, the gentle reminders that you were there, consistent, soft, loyal. You were always reachable, always open, always giving. And what happened? They got used to it. They mistook your presence for permanence. Your love became background noise. Familiar, constant, predictable. And predictability? It's a double-edged sword. It creates comfort, yes, but it also creates complacency. They stopped looking for the magic because they assumed it would always be there. You became like air, essential but ignored. And that's where the shift began, not because you stopped loving, but because they stopped noticing. Now that you've vanished, though, now they notice, not just your absence, but the value of the presence they never really appreciated. You're no longer predictable. You're not checking in, not posting for validation, not reacting to their bait. You're still, you're silent, you're unavailable. And suddenly, the thing they once overlooked has become the very thing they can't stop thinking about. That's not a coincidence. That's psychology. Let me paint you a picture. Think of a song that played every day, same time, same place. At first it's beautiful, comforting, but over time, they stop listening. It becomes background. They start skipping it. Until one day, the music stops. The air feels empty. And now? Now they're scrambling to find the song again, but they can't. It's gone. And in that silence, they remember every lyric, every note, every feeling. That's you. You were the melody. And now they're realizing the silence isn't peace, it's punishment. Not because you meant to hurt them, but because you finally stopped giving yourself away on repeat. They don't regret you when you're consistent. They regret you when you become a pattern they can't recreate. That's when the obsession starts. That's when they scroll through old messages, trying to pinpoint the moment you stopped showing up. That's when they wonder if it was something they did, or something they didn't do. And here's the twist. They won't tell you that. They won't text you and say, "Hey, I miss your reliability." Their ego won't let them. Instead, they'll post louder, pretend to be thriving, date someone new. But behind every staged smile is a mind running loops around your unpredictability. Because when you were easy to read, they stopped reading. Now that you're unreadable, you're irresistible. That's the Stoic move. You didn't rage, you didn't beg, you didn't demand closure. You just disappeared. Not as a tactic, but as a declaration. You stopped performing. You stopped proving. You stopped being predictable. And in that choice, you became powerful. You didn't chase closure. You created curiosity. And curiosity is what keeps them up at night. Why did they go? Are they seeing someone? Did they ever really care? Are they happier without me? These questions don't come from clarity. They come from confusion. And confusion breeds obsession. That's what happens when someone is used to your patterns, your habits, your rhythm, and suddenly all of it vanishes. It creates a void, and voids demand attention. They'll fill it with distractions, with noise, with substitutes. But nothing hits like the original. And the rarest energy? It's the one that left without slamming the door. No drama, no chaos, just absence. You became rare, not because you changed your essence, but because you stopped being available on their terms. You became uncommon, and in a world full of people trying to be seen, you became the one they can't stop looking for. That's dark magnetism. That's Stoic dating. You move with calm. You speak less. You let the absence tell the story. And what a story it is. Because here's the truth. When you were predictable, they thought you'd always be there. But now that you've gone quiet, now that they don't know what you're doing or what you're thinking or how you feel, they're spinning, trying to decode a frequency they no longer have access to. And sure, they might try to replace you, they might try to recreate what you gave with someone else, but it won't work. Because it's not about finding someone new, it's about realizing they lost something rare. And rare things don't knock twice, so no. Don't second-guess the silence. Don't regret walking away without a grand finale. Because your unpredictability is your power now. Your absence is the riddle they can't solve. You didn't just stop texting, you stopped being predictable. And in doing so, you became unforgettable. Stay with me, Because next, we're diving into what happens when your energy was their comfort. And now they're feeling the cold. Let's keep rising. 5. Your energy was the high. They're now in withdrawal. You were the emotional luxury they never learned to afford. Now let that sink in, my friends, because that line, it cuts right to the bone. You weren't a habit. You weren't a phase. You weren't just another number in the inbox. You were a high, an emotional elevation, a sense of peace, a depth most people don't even know how to breathe in, but they treated you like you were always gonna be there, like your care came cheap, like your energy had no expiration date. And now they're in withdrawal because you didn't just leave, you unplugged. You took your warmth, your softness, your check-ins, your steady presence, and you pulled it all back. And that shift? It wasn't loud, it wasn't messy, but it was seismic, because now they're sitting in the cold, trying to remember what sunshine felt like. And the wildest part, they can't find it anywhere else. You weren't just someone they talked to, you were someone who got them, someone who showed up without needing to be asked, someone who listened to the words they didn't say. You were their calm in a world full of noise, their breath of air when everything else felt heavy. You gave them the kind of connection that doesn't show up twice. And now they're realizing that too late. Let me give you a picture. Imagine someone floating in a pool of warm water, weightless, relaxed, safe. But they never stopped to wonder who was keeping the water warm. They never thanked the heat, never noticed the comfort, until the heater shuts off. Slowly the temperature drops. Suddenly they're shivering, confused, disoriented, not because anything attacked them, but because the comfort disappeared. That's what your absence is doing. It's creating a discomfort that's hard to describe but impossible to ignore, and they'll try to fix it. Oh, they'll scramble, they'll go out, post selfies, chase new attention, but nothing hits the same. Because what they're missing isn't a person, it's a feeling, and that feeling, that was you. Here's the thing nobody talks about. Energy is addictive, emotional energy especially. When you give love with depth, when you bring safety and clarity and truth without needing anything in return, you create something rare. And the human mind, it gets used to that. It adapts. It expects it. And when it's gone, the crash is real. It's emotional withdrawal, plain and simple. But they won't say that. Their pride won't let them. Instead, they lurk. They watch your stories. They scroll through your feed. They type and delete messages. They stay quiet, but never truly leave. Because even if they won't admit it, they're still circling your energy like a ghost, trying to haunt a house they no longer live in. They'll try to replace you. Let them. It won't work. Because no new person is hitting like you did. Not because the new one's broken, but because you set a standard. You showed them what presence feels like, what genuine care feels like, what being seen feels like. And now that they're with someone who just mirrors their surface, they feel the hollowness. They remember how you looked at them, how you noticed the details, how your silence spoke volumes and your presence felt like home. And now their new connection feels like staying in a hotel. It's clean, it's functional, but it's not home. It doesn't know them. It doesn't challenge them. It doesn't hold them accountable to being better. You did all that and more. And yes, they'll pretend to be fine. They'll joke more, laugh louder, flex harder. But that's not healing. That's hiding. Because your absence created a silence, a loud, echoing silence. One they can't drown out no matter how many distractions they chase. That's the storm you've become. Not because you're chasing them, but because you're not. They feel the storm because they remember the peace. That's the paradox. You were their soft place, their steady hum, their quiet confidence. And now that it's gone, the world feels louder, colder, emptier. And every time their phone buzzes, every time they see your name nowhere, it hits. You were the emotional luxury they never learned to afford. And now the bills come due. So say it, own it, breathe it in. I am their silence. I am their storm. Because you didn't just walk away. You became a force. You didn't disappear. You became the one they can't replace. Stay with me, because next we're stepping into what happens when their new glow-up is just gold paint over a cracked foundation. Let's keep rising. 6. The illusion of moving on is just a mask for emptiness. New arms, same void, different face, same ache. That one should hit right in the chest, my friends, because this is where most people get fooled. This is where the show begins. You see them out there, smiling wider, laughing louder, taking trips, posting cryptic captions with their new peace. But behind every filtered selfie, behind every loud laugh, behind every rushed connection, is a void they're trying to cover up. Not with healing, but with distraction. They didn't move on, they moved around. And there's a massive difference. Let's call it what it is, a performance, a panic masquerading as peace. They're not healed, they're hiding. And you were the mirror, you were the depth, you were the stillness that made them sit with themselves. Now that you're gone, they don't want to face that silence. So they run, they rebound, they post, they perform. And all of it? It's for your attention, even if they'll never admit it. Let me give you a visual. Picture someone bleeding, open wounds. But instead of tending to them, they grab a can of gold spray paint and coat themselves with it. From a distance, shiny, perfect, even enviable. But underneath, still broken, still aching. That's what moving on looks like when it's built on avoidance. It's not transformation, it's decoration. They didn't replace you, they replaced your presence with noise. And noise is easy to find. Real connection, real energy, real you, that's irreplaceable. You were the one who listened when they didn't even know how to talk. You were the one who noticed what they tried to hide. You were the one who didn't need a mask to understand the truth. And now that you're gone, every conversation feels just a little more shallow. Every laugh feels a little more forced. Every moment feels like a copy of something they once had, but never knew how to hold. But I know the trap. I know what happens when you see the posts, when you scroll past their smile with someone new and wonder, were they ever even hurt? Did I ever matter? Was I that easy to replace? And that, my friend, is the lie they want you to believe. Because if they can convince you they're over it, maybe they can convince themselves. But deep down, they're not fine. They're fragmented. Because real connection doesn't get replaced. It gets remembered. It haunts. You weren't just someone who filled a space. You changed the space. You brought peace where there was noise. You brought honesty where there was performance. You showed them something real in a world built on highlights and half-truths. And now they're realizing that kind of presence doesn't just fade, it echoes. And the reason their new smile feels louder, it's because they're overcompensating. They're trying to look unbothered. They're trying to project growth. But real healing doesn't need an audience. Real peace doesn't need to be posted. When someone has truly moved on, they don't flex, they disappear. They go inward, they sit with the lesson, they level up quietly. But this isn't quiet. This is panic in high definition. Because here's the truth. They feel your absence. Every time they say the same line to someone new and it doesn't land the same. Every time they look into different eyes and still see the memory of yours. Every time they try to recreate a moment that used to feel effortless with you, but now feels empty. And maybe they won't admit it. Maybe their pride is louder than their pain. But the silence you left behind is doing all the talking. Your energy isn't something they can duplicate. It was a one-of-one, custom-built, soul-driven. You weren't just in their life. You moved through it like a storm and a shelter at the same time. And now that you're gone, everything else feels like static. So don't fall for the mask. Don't mistake volume for validation. Their glow-up isn't growth. It's grief with glitter. They didn't evolve. They escaped. But the thing about escaping is, you always come back to what you ran from. And when the noise fades, when the room goes quiet again, that's when your absence gets the loudest. Because you weren't noise, you were depth. And depth doesn't vanish, it echoes. You were the lesson they weren't ready to learn. And now? Now they're dancing through denial, hoping the music's loud enough to keep them from remembering your silence. Stay with me, because next, we're stepping into why Stoic detachment isn't coldness, it's control. Let's keep rising. 7. Stoic dating is attraction by absence, not effort. You don't chase what you know is watching. Let that land, my friends, because real attraction, Stoic attraction, isn't about pushing harder, posting more, or begging to be noticed. It's not about performing for love like it's an audition. It's about being, not proving. It's about standing still in your truth so firmly that anyone not grounded in theirs gets shaken just by your silence. Stop proving, stop posting, stop chasing. You're not a product. You're not for sale. You don't need to convince anyone of your worth. You are the worth. And the more you perform, the more you bleed energy into people who were never ready to hold it. But when you retreat into stillness, when you say nothing, post nothing, explain nothing, that's when your presence starts speaking louder than any caption ever could. The Stoic doesn't beg to be understood. They don't fight to be seen. They move with quiet conviction, and that silence, it haunts, it lingers. Because in a world addicted to validation, the one who walks away without flinching becomes unforgettable. Detachment isn't indifference, it's dignity. It's knowing that your peace is not up for grabs, that your worth isn't tied to someone else's ability to see it. It's stepping back and letting your absence do what your presence couldn't, demand respect. Marcus Aurelius said it best, "If someone can prove me wrong, I'll gladly change. But if they can't, I remain." That's you now, rooted, unshaken, no longer bending to be loved, no longer shrinking to be accepted. You remain. Stay with me, because next, we're diving into what happens when they try to replace you and realize you can't copy connection. 8. You became the story they keep retelling to themselves. They don't miss you, they miss who they were when you stayed. Let that truth settle, my friends, because that's what most people never say out loud. It's not just you they miss, it's the version of themselves they could only access in your presence, the calmer self, the softer self, the one who felt understood even in silence. That's what's echoing now. That's what's haunting them, not just your love, but how you made them feel human again. You became the story they keep retelling, not to others, but to themselves. Late at night, in quiet moments. In the pause between texts from someone new who just doesn't get it. They're not moving on. They're looping, playing old memories like songs they didn't know they loved until the music stopped. Because your exit, it didn't just leave them confused, it left them obsessed. You didn't just walk away. You carved a space in their mind that can't be filled. They try. They reach for new hands, new laughs, new names. but the rhythm doesn't match. The chemistry doesn't click. Because they're not looking for someone new. They're trying to recreate you. And that's what mystery does. It lingers. It doesn't fade. It stays. Not as pain, but as power. You became the imprint they can't erase. Because you were never surface level. You were soul deep. And soul deep doesn't get replaced. And here's the truth, my friends. As we wrap this up, remember this. Your silence wasn't the end of the story. It was the start of your power. You didn't walk away to prove a point. You walked away because you are the point. Let them scroll. Let them search. You rise, quietly, powerfully, unapologetically. If this spoke to your soul, smash that like button, hit subscribe, and share this with someone who needs the reminder. Drop your favorite affirmation in the comments. Let the world feel your growth. Because we're just getting started. Stay with me.